If you constantly feel pressure to speak, to be noticed, or to just say something even when you don't know what you want to say, there is a reason for that. Your throat center in human design feels like the most pressured center in your entire chart because it is the way that you naturally communicate, express, and manifest. Every center, every gate, every single channel is reaching up to the throat center to be expressed, to be heard, and to do. But the problem isn't your communication style. It is the conditioning that you have taken on around needing to prove that your voice matters. And in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly why this pressure exists, how your throat center affects your manifestation and expression, and what to do if you feel blocked, insecure, or just plain unsure of what to say. I'll also show you how to work with your design instead of forcing yourself to sound a certain way or say things that you don't mean. And honestly, what I share about the open throat center might just blow your mind. So let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to my channel. My name is Nina Elise. I am an embodiment and growth mentor and a human design specialist. I teach you how to understand your brain, your body, and emotions through the lens of human design, mindset work, and nervous system healing so you can finally feel at peace, stop second guessing yourself, and live a life that feels like yours. If that speaks to you, hit subscribe so you never miss a video that helps you get clear, grounded, and back in your power. Now, let's dive into today's topic, the throat center in human design. First off, if you are not sure whether your throat center is defined or undefined, head to nina-elise.com/chart to get your free chart. I will also pop the link right here on the screen. So go look it up, then come back to this video. Okay, let's break this down. The throat center is the square center. It is the third center from the top of your chart. It is associated with communication, self-expression, manifestation, and even transformation. It also governs your thyroid and your parathyroid glands. And energetically, every single center in the body graph is trying to make its way all the way up to the throat, because this is how energy becomes action and how inspiration becomes a form in this 3D reality. This is why so many of us feel so much pressure to talk, to create, to say the right thing, especially if your throat is undefined. So let's explore what it means to have this center defined or undefined. If you have a defined throat, you have a consistent way of expressing yourself. You'll notice that the center is colored in your chart. So the gates connected to your throat show the unique voices that you speak through. These are your go-to ways of communicating and manifesting. Defined throat folks often have a predictable tone, rhythm, or style to their speech. Others might say, "You always say things this way," or "Your voice is so recognizable." But the shadow, you might talk over others, push your energy into conversations, or speak from your mind rather than your inner truth and authority. The throat is so powerful, and when it is hijacked by your mind or your need to control, it can create misalignment really quick. Now, if your throat is undefined or open, you will see that the center is white on your chart, and you don't necessarily have a consistent way of speaking or manifesting. And before you get upset, this doesn't mean that you can't be a powerful speaker or manifester. In fact, many brilliant speakers, actors, and authors have open throat centers. What it means is that you adapt. Your communication is more fluid, you speak differently with different people. Your wisdom comes from knowing when to speak, how to mirror others, and when silence is actually the most powerful thing in the room. But this center is also where a lot of insecurity shows up. The open throat is conditioned to chase attention, to talk too much or not speak at all, to feel like if they don't say something, they will disappear or be irrelevant or not be contributing to the conversation. Does that sound familiar? So I want to share a story about a past client of mine because her journey with the undefined throat center perfectly illustrates the hidden pressure that this center can create. She was someone who, on the outside, seemed perfectly calm and collected. But internally, she felt this constant pressure to be noticed. So when she was in work meetings or when around other people, she would find herself blurting out random thoughts just to fill silence and feel super embarrassed. And so she would spiral afterwards into self-judgment and wondering, why did I even say that? And other times she would actually swing to the opposite extreme. So she would freeze, stay quiet, and then also feel invisible or irrelevant. And this back and forth dynamic created a lot of insecurity in her relationships and her business. So she thought it was just social anxiety, but once we looked at her chart, she saw that she had a completely open throat center. And that is when it clicked for her, and why she realized that silence felt really threatening, because she was actually amplifying everyone else's defined voice energy. And once she began noticing this and practicing silence intentionally, she realized how much more magnetic she became when she stopped trying to prove herself. And people actually started seeking her out more because her words landed deeper when she finally trusted herself to wait for the right moment to speak. And now, to contrast that with my personal experience, I actually have a defined throat center as a manifester in human design. And for years, I still didn't trust myself to speak. I would overthink everything before I said it. I would rehearse conversations in my head or water down my emotions. And while this had a lot to do with other undefined centers in my chart, especially my open heart and emotional conditioning, it also deeply affected how I used my voice. So I have 2 full channels from my emotional solar plexus all the way up to my throat. These are 2 really powerful manifestation channels. But growing up, I was often punished for expressing big feelings. So I learned to shut them off, disconnect from my body, and filter myself to stay safe. And yet, ironically, my emotions are my superpower. So when I speak from my feelings and my emotions, especially when I'm in the right emotional wave, that right mood, it is basically pure magic. And people feel it. And it lands, and it actually moves things forward in a really beautiful way. So for me, deconditioning my throat actually began in my solar plexus. So learning to feel again, regulate my nervous system, and trust that speaking from emotions was safe and powerful. And something I also had to get really honest about was that I used to talk over people because my voice was strong and my ideas moved fast. And so it became a conscious practice to really slow down, pause, and invite others in to speak so that my voice did not override theirs. This is why human design is so powerful. It doesn't just show you your voice. It shows you what is behind the voice and how we are all responsible for how we communicate, not just for ourselves, but also how we impact others. So the ultimate question is, how do you actually decondition the throat center, whether you're defined or undefined? So here are a few ways that you can start if you have a defined throat center. First, your voice is consistent and reliable, but just because it's powerful doesn't mean that it is always aligned. You want to start by noticing where you speak from. Is it your mind trying to force something, or are you waiting for clarity from your inner authority? And if you don't know your inner authority, you can go back and reference the chart that you pulled from my website at nina-elise.com. If your throat is connected to the solar plexus like mine, let your emotional wave guide you when to speak. If it is connected to your spleen, you can speak from intuition, but only in the moment. If it is connected to your heart center, speaking from your willpower and your desires, from your G center, the expression of your creativity and identity, and last but not least, your sacral center, responding or taking action to anything you feel a sacral yes to. If you often talk over others or dominate conversations, start to experiment with silence. So practice holding space and invite others to speak first. You might actually be surprised at what happens when you use your voice to amplify and not overpower. And above all, speak with responsibility. Your words carry weight, so let them align with your values and integrity, not your ego or your mind. And if you have an undefined or open throat center, here are a few ways to decondition. You may feel pressure to speak, to be noticed, to fill the silence, but your power actually lies in waiting. So try this practice. 1 hour per day of silent presence. Don't speak unless you're invited or grounded in your authority. Observe how much of your communication is reaction and not resonance. So you can try and split this up in smaller increments throughout the day as well. Just experiment and see what works for you. You can also ask yourself, am I trying to get attention or am I initiating to avoid being forgotten? When you hold your voice until it is truly needed, you become magnetic. People will lean in and your presence speaks louder than forced words. And also be gentle with yourself if your voice changes, depending on who you are around. That is your gift. You are meant to be more fluid in the way that you speak. You're here to express yourself in many different ways. And that is part of your brilliance. You can also affirm something like, I am noticed when I am aligned. My voice is valuable, even in silence. And over time, you will notice how much more magnetic you become and how much more magnetic your voice is. So whether your throat is defined or undefined, know this. You are not here to sound like anyone else. You are here to speak in the way only you can. And the world needs your voice, most importantly, when it is coming from your truth. You can explore your throat center and all of the other centers more deeply in your personalized human design PDF, aligned by your design. Just comment align below and I will send you the link. To go even deeper into your expression, any manifestation blocks, or how to reconnect with your authentic voice, you can also book a one-on-one human design reading with me. The link is on the screen right here and in the description below. So to close, do you have a defined or undefined throat center in your chart? And what are powerful ways that you have deconditioned this center? Share in the comments because I would love to hear. The next step is understanding your other centers, especially the ajna and the emotional center, because those influence your voice too. I will link a playlist right here to help you explore the rest of your centers in your chart. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this today. I will see you all in the next one.